Now we're on to minimum viable product presentations. The first panel member is...
I reckon I've been living off my wits for the last 15 years. I've started 5 businesses for myself. I've started 4 businesses for other people in markets that include Romania, Korea, Indonesia, Hong Kong and Vietnam. I've been a software engineer, an accountant, an army officer. I've run an advertising agency. That's pretty much all I've got to say about me. Thank you.
Impressive, impressive. Next is Mark Mansour.
Hi.
Hey, Mark.
G'day, my name is Mark. So I run a business called Agile Bench. It's project management for online product companies. And I've been at it for about 5 years, and I'll give you the ways that I've failed a little bit later. My background, I'm a programmer by trade, and I've been managing teams and software shops for about 15 years. I've worked in startups for about 8 or 9, both here and in the Valley, so yeah, that's a bit about me.
We've got some experienced guys here tonight. And next is I was trying to get this surname right before. Steve Stamatino.
Sammartino.
Stamatino, huh? Hey, brother. Love it, love it.
Cognome Stefano Sammartino. No, it's Steve Sammartino. I've been involved in the startup scene for nearly 10 years. I launched Rentoid.com back in the dark ages in 2004, and recently I've joined Tomcar, which is Australia's only car manufacturing startup. Make and sell cars, Australian owned, Australian made, here, which is cool. I write a blog called Startup Blog, and you should really read it. It's really amazing. Like, you really should read it. That's enough.
That sounds good. Next is Jackie Bull.
Bit of an easier name. My name's Jackie Bull. I am the other co-founder of Sidekicker, which is a website and app that connects businesses with on-demand assistance. I don't have the years in the game that these guys do, but I've been working on my startup for 18 months. We've recently launched in Sydney and Brisbane, and yeah, I guess I've learned a lot in those 18 months working on a startup.
Well done, Jackie. Okay, the companies. First up is Lindsay Rattray from ClassWired. English as a second language going digital. Go for it, man.
Evening. Okay, thanks for the chance. I guess take this as less of a sales pitch and more just a chance to find out what you guys think about what we're doing. So, I'm Lindsay Rattray and this is Faye Nakata. And together we're making a platform for the connected language classroom. Has anyone tried to learn a language in the room? Okay. Some languages, what have you tried to learn? German, Cantonese? Okay, cool. Spanish? Okay. Well, English, yeah? Okay, right. So I tried to learn Arabic and I found it so difficult, I actually moved to Syria to continue what I was trying to do. And I realized as an engineer that there was a lot of things that we could do in language classrooms to make them better. So I started making myself some little programs that helped me learn Arabic, but then I thought there's got to be a lot more to this. So I actually became a teacher. Now I'm an ESL teacher. I teach ESL. I taught in Sydney, in Syria, and in Melbourne a little bit too. And this is what we've come up with. There we go. Okay, so on the right side is the problem. And this is a lot of feedback that I've had from teachers and from students and some of my own thoughts. Stationery is stationery. It doesn't move. So what we put into our notebooks is stuck there. And we just throw it away at the end of the class. As a teacher, I don't have time. I could make great lessons, but the fact is I don't actually get paid for preparation time. So in the end, I end up teaching lessons that I know could be better. And our classes are actually isolated. If you go into an ESL classroom, then there'll be a little sign somewhere in the room and says, turn your phones off. We ignore that now. Students use their phones, but we don't use them as much as we could. Okay, so the solution is, The solution is content. So content is dynamic. We can save it, we can reuse it, we can test it the next day, we can set it for homework, we can share it with the other students. We have activities that are ready. After I became an English teacher, I realised how many different activities there are that have the English language teaching pedagogy that's built up over time, and we've built that into the program. So we can keep the content forever, and our classes are connected. We can bring in the outside world. So if you look at this picture, the difference between this picture and a picture in a course book is, if you ask the question, what is he doing? It's not what is he doing, what is Lindsay doing? Well, Lindsay's making a decision. He's deciding, is he going to go to Baghdad or Damascus? Where do you think he's going to go? So all of a sudden, you've got that interest. Okay, and with that, we can feed back so the teacher can see what the students are doing, we can share, the students can share, and we can personalise, like this. Yeah, phone's off. Okay, so the market focus is travelling English. English is a massive market worldwide, but we're focusing on those people who move to another country, specifically an English-speaking country, to learn English. And in Australia, it's quite a big market, and in the world, it's massive. You can see we've measured there student weeks, not student numbers. Our business model is about how long a student stays at the school, not just how many students there are. Okay, what we've done so far. Well, I became a teacher, as I explained. It's not really the most lean way to do it. And I'm slowly building up over time expertise in pedagogy and mobile learning. That's what M-learning is. I've taken our wireframes. I think this is a little bit more lean. I've taken our wireframes to a lot of teachers in Melbourne and Sydney and got feedback to teachers' conferences and meetups. I've had invitations for professional development. That's what schools do once every few months, and they need people to come in and explain some part of teaching, so they actually want people to come in and for me to explain what we're doing. A request for a proposal, that's just one school that said, tell us what you're doing. Well, we want to know how much it costs and what it is. We did launch 48. Faina and I both did launch 48, actually on different ideas, but we've worked on that there. Stop teaching, may start again. That's a very good way to get into schools, to actually teach at them. And finally, I'm working full-time with Faina Carter. I think in the description before of finding a technical co-founder, Faina meets that category, so I recommend anyone who's looking for someone technologically very, very adept, speak to Faina later on. Okay, the next 6 months is very product-focused. I've got all of these things except the last one, and it gets a little bit kind of hockey stick there at the end. The funding, I think we've really got a few choices. Personal and controlled, so that's obviously me, and I have full control over it. Commercialisation Australia, they offer a 50-50 split. I'm also interested in getting some feedback on what people think about private funding. Why would you say yes to this? Why would you say no to this? Okay, 3 things from you. The first one is, did you understand what I just said? Do you understand, in broad terms, the product? It's quite difficult to explain it sometimes to someone who's not an ESL teacher. What would you do if you had $100,000 and you wanted to spend it on this? That's a question I'm grappling with now. And who would you add to this team? So we've got someone who has domain expertise, some programming, an expert programmer. If you could just add anyone to this, who would you add? And that's it. Thank you.
So the panel is going to ask some questions, and there's going to be 2 questions from the audience as well. So by all means, have a think, and let's go. So Brendan, what do you think?
Look, I thought it was fairly an interesting thing that you were doing. What was going through my head, though, is that there's an awful lot of people who've had a go at this in this space, and have you spoken to any of them about the issues that they ran into and why their products aren't necessarily in the market today?
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, Al. Come over. It's probably easier. Go for it.
Actually, who are you? Are you talking about the big ones?
No, I've met, in the last 10 years, I've met plenty of people who've done ESL on the web and ESL on mobile, and they're just not around today, and I'm wondering if you've spoken to any. Because the idea isn't new.
Yeah. So, no, I wouldn't say that we've spoken to anyone who is small and failed. That's essentially what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And
No.
what about the larger players?
We haven't. No, I wouldn't say that we've spoken to anyone who's big and succeeded either. Doesn't really sound very good, does it? But in saying that, we have spoken to other people who are working in a similar area, working with RTOs, so registered training organisations, which is what a lot of the English schools are. We're meeting someone next week who's doing that. I don't think they're really in the succeeded or failed category though. They're people who are startups now. So I've met people amongst this group who are in that space.
Yeah.
I think the language space is really interesting as well, and someone who's learned a couple of languages. I wonder if you've considered the people who are not in the classroom who might be wanting to learn a language. So when I was learning Italian, I used to meet strangers on Skype, and they're wanting to learn English and I'm wanting to learn Italian, and so it was an exchange. So I'm wondering if you've thought about integrating some of those tools where people in different countries can connect over the web using existing tools and aggregating those in some capacity.
Yeah, so my initial thoughts on this were that this was something that was already being done a lot by the bigger players like Duolingo and Busuu. But I met someone at Kaplan. Kaplan's got the biggest set of English schools in Australia, and she suggested to me that there are people who are teaching online, but they haven't actually got the tools. People doing Skype teaching, as I've done, they haven't got the tools to bring in the English pedagogy into something like Adobe Connect. And so the answer is yes. This product would work in a classroom, a real existing classroom, or in a virtual classroom.
How are you going to make money from it?
Okay, so the model is, it's based on what schools do already with materials. So already schools charge in between $5 to $10 for materials per student per week. That was the student weeks figures earlier. So about 1.5 million weeks, student weeks in Australia. So we would charge $1 per student per week.
Is that something you think have you researched whether they'll pay that?
Have I researched whether schools would? Yeah.
So they're happy to pay $1 a week?
Yeah, I've spoken to schools, and schools are never happy to spend money, right? But schools already spend this money, and they could use this product to actually save money. So they would actually have to spend less on activity books, and like the dollar saving would be higher than what they spend on activity books.
Great.
So is the most value to the teachers or the students in using the product? Yes.
I think in a very immediate sense, in the moment you use it, the value is for the teachers. Yeah. The value is for the teachers. Because the teachers get instant access to activities that they can use, and they don't have to spend time preparing them, or they can improve their lessons instantly. But I think over time, the value is for the students, because the students build up a pool of information, of things that they've studied, that they can actually use after they've finished, studying.
Sounds good. Any two questions from the crowd? The man with the...
Yeah, I was just wondering how the product differs from other language learning products that actually get integrated, like Khan Academy or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So Duolingo is premised on the idea that you can learn language outside of a class. For me, there's a big question over that. So this is focused on what happens inside a class. That's one difference, or in a virtual class. And I think another important difference is, at the moment, what schools are looking at is how do they engage their students digitally. So a lot of schools don't even record the email address of their students. So they want all that information, but they also want a way that they can connect with their students before the students come and after they leave. And that's not what Duolingo are about. Duolingo are about what happens outside of school or what happens outside of class.
Okay. Yes.
Then who would you add to this team? Have you got someone who's an expert in instructional design?
No. Good, thank you. Good suggestion.
Well, someone who knows instructional design, maybe you got a gig with this guy. So hit him up in the networking break. So good question, good question. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Lindsay.
For all the people in the room, if you're a software developer, you will understand where this product is coming from. If you are a business manager, if you are someone that is in control of a cost centre, you might take a little bit of explaining, but understand this, that this is an outsourcing opportunity. This is a chance for you to get rid of some of your infrastructure that might be costing you $20,000, $30,000 a year per server. Okay. Introducing Ourflow. What's the problem? Okay. There's a growing need for message handling. Now, what I mean by messages in this case, and this is going to get a bit more technical, is not text messages. It's not pictures about your new cat with a little blurb underneath it. This is the actual underlying framework of passing small packets of information between applications. So, let's say that you have developed an app, and you've rolled your app out on iPhone, Android, Symbian if you're really unlucky, J2ME if you're living in the dark ages. You've got a desktop version as well, and you've got a web-based version as well. And part of the operation, this is like being in the 80s with this microphone, part of the operation of your product is that your users communicate with each other, and they might exchange things like location updates, they might exchange pictures of their cats, they might exchange discussions about their cats, but at the end of the day, they're exchanging information with each other in real time. Now, when you rolled your product out, you launched it, you had a little server sitting in the corner that was routing all these messages. So when one of your users said, hey, I got a new message, it went back to this little server, that spun it around a bit, and then that pushed it out to the endpoint or the other user that was to receive that message. Okay, now, fast forward a little bit. Someone from TechCrunch is having a slow news day and they decide to promote your app on their website, and all of a sudden, if you're old enough, you've just been slashdotted. So all of a sudden, you've gone from having 500 users, maybe pushing 1,000 messages a second, you've got now 100,000 users pushing 1,000 messages a second. Well, that's an exaggeration, but let's say that you're pushing an awful lot more messages. Let's say you're pushing 1,000 times more messages than you were 2 hours ago, or an hour ago, or half an hour ago. Now, your little server in the corner, and because this was released in the European time zone, you're still tucked up in bed, your little server, and I'm sort of speaking from experience here, don't laugh, it's not funny, it really hurt, right? It's not a good place to be, especially when you're a team leader and you're responsible for it somehow. Your little server has now become a hairdryer. It is no longer pushing messages, it is filling syslog, oops, technical term. So it is now filling its system logs with kernel panic. It is now out of memory. It is now pushing more hot air than it is messages. It is now a hairdryer. So don't laugh, it happens. You see it all the time. Well, that's actually, hang on, no. If you go back a bit, you used to see it, but now we use virtual servers. So it's now a virtual hairdryer pumping out virtual hot air in someone else's data centre. So anyway, I need to stop. This is getting too much here. So anyway, you've now got this problem, right? So you've got this massive load. So now that your simple little web app, not web application, no application is ever simple, but your application is now gone and has now become a major engineering issue which you may or may not have talent to solve. Certainly not talent to solve in the So the sorts of issues you'll need to think about is you'll now have to think about message handling infrastructure. You'll now have to think about hiring the right people. You will need engineers, computer scientists and all those sorts of people to start resolving this problem. You are now going to have to engage in risk mitigation. What happens if it falls over again? What will our investors think when our platform for our really cool app falls on its head? What are we going to do? Risk mitigation, insurance, all sorts of things happen when you start running into these problems. Didn't work. Got to point it. Okay, getting back to the messaging bit again, having just sold the horror story, getting back into the messaging bit again, there's lots of things that use messages. If you go into the logistics domain, nearly every truck and trailer, or probably more the trailers because trailers matter in logistics, is being tracked. So every few seconds there's a message coming off that. Inside warehouses on a conveyor belt travelling at 20 kilometres an hour, there are boxes. Go past scanners and they emit messages. In dry cleaning centres in places like Singapore and stuff like that, garments have little RFID tags in them. They go past a sensor. They go into a machine that then sorts them, and then they go into the logistics system for delivery. Inside mail distribution centres, they read the addresses off the parcels as they fly through on a conveyor belt. They do all sorts of stuff like that. All of this stuff's emitting messages. Environmental monitoring stuff across the world, certainly in the developed world. Across the world in sewage systems, water treatment plants, water infrastructure, power, telecommunications, there's messages being emitted off sensor networks. Out in the environment, monitoring air quality, monitoring soil quality, all sorts of things, they're all emitting messages. And then finally, we've got all the businesses like you guys, you know. You've got websites, you're pushing messages around. You want responsive websites that have that ability to operate in full duplex, another technical term. But you want them to be able to push messages backwards and forwards. And as I said before, it's okay to do this on a small scale with a couple of hundred concurrent users, but what happens when it's thousands of concurrent users? Do you really want to spend that money on infrastructure? So where do we fit in all of this? Well, actually, what we've done so far, I have to follow the slide pattern here, sorry. Basically acquired a co-founder. I went out and acquired one, if that's the right term. He laughed as well, so I'm really happy about that. He can't be here tonight, I'm sorry about that as well. He needs to know a bit more about the product. No, only joking. No, he does, he knows. He knows. We've worked together before, it was a long time ago. He's gotten over it. Okay. It's all too much fun. Okay, I've acquired a co-founder, and the Inspire 9 people are shocked at this presentation, I can tell. Acquired a co-founder is a specialist in the field. I have built a minimum viable product. I've built the server-side infrastructure. I'm not publishing anything yet because I haven't fully standardised the wire protocol. Another technical term, sorry about that. I've got a lot of testing to do, and I've spoken with one potential customer from the logistics domain. And basically their only criteria was that it must be cost effective. I mean, the usual things like it must work and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, I mean, they're talking to developers and managers of developers and developers that have become managers of cost centres. But, you know, it must work and, you know, has to be cost effective. So, according to the program, which I'll do again. Right, plans for the next 3 months. Now, I put the non-technical stuff up here. I put that up first because I thought I'd do something a bit different. So the non-technical stuff, yeah, we need to engage our customers. We need to actually start going out and doing that. Now, that's not something I'm going to be doing. A co-founder is more adept at that than I am. Need to basically speak and promote and drive awareness of the product. From my point of view, the key evangelists of this product are not so much the people managing the cost centres, it's the engineers and developers that say, hey, we could use this product to solve a problem for our business. The person signing the checks is probably not going to be that cognizant or not going to understand the nitty-gritty of the product, but what you want is we need a product that is understandable by developers in that respect, and that they become effectively the evangelists of the product because we solve a problem for them. And we need, so I guess, understanding feedback, although I'm a bit lost at why I put that up there. But it is necessary. It is, trust me. Not the kind of feedback that this sound system was getting, but, you know, real useful feedback. Okay, technically, need to build client examples. Both my partner and I come from an embedded systems domain originally. This was sort of going back 15, 20 years, I think. But we all come in an embedded system domain. So what we're going to do is build a range of clients that sort of suit the product areas that we want. So we're looking at a product that would give ideas to the logistics industry on how you can use our service. A client that can give ideas on how you would use it in monitoring systems. Tracking in mobile, and the usual array of clients for sort of web-based stuff, mobile phones, and all of that. So, oh yeah, and release too, that sort of is going to happen in the next 6 months. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Again. Okay, the last one, my three questions for the panel. Prioritisation, where does experience tell you to go first? What guidelines do you have when deciding when to act on feedback? And how did you mitigate perceived startup risk with customers?
Sure. Well done. Give a round of applause. No worries. So actually, I'll ask the question. Prioritisation.
Yeah.
Where does experience tell you to go first?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question. So Scott's asked me to give a bit of feedback, so I'm going to give you a bit of feedback first. So I thought, firstly, your style is quirky and engaging, and everyone was laughing, so that's a great start. I think that there are some issues with your presentation style. So what wasn't... No. That's not a problem. So if your buyer or your customer is a technical person, so you need to speak in the language of the people who are going to be buying and using your product.
I told them specifically not to do it. They're going to have a beer drinking competition based on the number.
They're just ribbing you. So focus on who your target is. So I'd like to hear more about who you're targeting, why you're targeting them. And another piece of feedback is, look, I like the way you told a story to try and get across what you were doing, but I think you took too long to get through it. So you could really tighten that message up. So some practice will get you there. And the other thing I didn't walk away from was, there are a bunch of messaging products on the market. I didn't walk away with what your differentiator was. So if I'm going to compare you to a competitor, why would I pick you? So they're the things that I guess I'd think about from a high level. So do you guys want to add anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a non-tech kind of person, and I was confused. I actually didn't know at all what the product was, other than maybe something to do with tracking goods and services in logistics, or something to do with the web of things and how products, we can know what's happening. I really don't have an idea. So the thing that I always look for, and I always tell people if they're pitching to me, is tell me in 2 sentences. Yeah. And even if it takes you 3 months to work out what those 2 sentences are, and say that right up front, before anything. Here's what we do, and here's why you need it. And then give us the backstory. But I was confused. So being able to just define what you do pre-story is good. And I also thought you were hilarious, and I think that technology comedy is a good thing as well. So that was awesome. It was good. It was good. I liked it. It was entertaining. And if you can entertain people, you can engage. So once you get that message thin and tight and succinct, then I'm really certain you'll be able to, take those next steps.
I thought I might answer one of your questions.
Yeah.
The middle one, the guideline about deciding to decide to act on feedback. I've been a salesman and I've been a marketer, and in my head I kind of have this switch that when you act as a salesperson, what happens is you pitch something a couple of times, and if it doesn't work, you get a bit pissed off and you say, "Oh, we're done. That doesn't want to work." When you approach the same issue as a marketer, you think maybe I'm looking for a response rate of 4% or 5%, and I'm going to send out 2,000 inquiries to see what type of response rate I'm going to get. And it's a completely different starting point. So when looking at your feedback, decide how much feedback matters. So there could be, if the first person you walk up to and he says, "I don't like your red cardigan," and the next person says, "I don't like your red cardigan," if you're a salesman, you go, "Oh, bugger, I'm going to get rid of it." But say, look, if I meet 15 people who give me this type of response, then I think that's significant. And you may need to weight that as well, but kind of decide what success and failure are before you start. Otherwise, you just spiral into self-doubt.
Thanks. I really enjoyed your presentation as well. It was very entertaining. And I understood the second half of it and where your product fits in, but the one thing that I wasn't that clear on was, it was a great example about, if you get on TechCrunch and you have an influx of messages, but I just didn't see where that related in the second half in terms of logistics and those industries. Yeah. With the questions, in terms of where does experience tell you to go first, the one thing that I've kind of learnt is to really focus on one niche, product or customer, and focus on them, especially as a startup with limited resources. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. So I don't know what your customers, which one's best, but maybe pick logistics or environments or the third one. And with deciding on feedback, I think it's just always really important to keep the core of your product and what value you think your product has when you're taking it. Like, get as much feedback as you can, but make sure you keep that in mind, because people can always put out their opinion, but you actually know your product the best. Anyone else?
Okay. Well done. Give them a round of applause. You've actually got a unique style, girl. You've actually got a unique style.
Oh, okay.
Like the guys were saying, it's comedian. Well, it's you, you know. It's cool. It's cool.
So I could take it off and run if you want to recognise me.
That's great. Has anybody any questions, please? Okay. Yell it out, man.
Yeah, so as a technical person, I know what problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
You're talking about very, very broad areas.
Yeah.
My thought is logistics in other countries is more centralised on large players. In Australia, there's a lot of smaller players in logistics, so you've got a good opportunity there.
Yeah.
You talk about mobile apps and other sensors and stuff that sort of clouds the message because they're very vastly different messaging profiles and requirements that you need real time, maybe not. It's like SCADA already exists. There's less.
Oh yeah, you're talking industrialised sensor.
So my background's in industrial automation. And there's plenty of established players there.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking with the environmental sensors now. We're starting to see a lot of GSM connected internet-based type sensors that are pushing out over the same platform that the other types of devices were. That's sort of where we were. That's sort of where we're looking. We could never be a replacement for SCADA or anything like that. We wouldn't even try. That's not something that we'd try and do. Yeah. No, good question though. Thank you. Some stuff that I've done over the time is a lot of geospatial stuff, doing massive compares on points and stuff, which is not something that we wanted to offer originally. What we wanted to build is a stable messaging platform first and then offer value adds on top of that. That's sort of looking into the future beyond 6 to 9 months. I've done a lot of route analysis and stuff like that in other things. So there's some awesome stuff there, like you were saying, that kind of analytics. We want to make a point that we don't go into people's payloads, because once you go into people's payloads, you have to start requiring them to structure their payloads a certain way. So basically, we just ship people's data around and we don't look at it. We're interested in that their payload arrives where it's meant to arrive, but we're not interested in what's in the payload as yet. And just initially, I want to keep that. It's like a glass ceiling. It's like a wall that we want to keep. It's an absolute privacy barrier, because we don't mind if you want to encrypt your payload. That's fine by us. We don't mind. That's that sort of stuff. But digging into people's payloads is
But
even
just looking at maybe some of the vector data.
Yeah. Well, there is an ability to add tags to every message as well, so there's no reason why that can't be worked on in parallel by another system at the same time. So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of that, but we do have some future plans built on top of a messaging infrastructure. So yeah. Nice. Thank you.
Well done. Give a round of applause. Okay, our next presenter is Nick Darcy-Fox from StillReel. Turn your TV into a work of art.
Hi, my name is Nick Darcy-Fox. I'm the founder of StillReel. We're busy building a product called StillReel.com, which is an online digital art gallery designed to stream a curated selection of digital art to any connected device, probably a smart TV. So the problem that we're trying to solve essentially is that we've got, there are people out there, artists who are producing great works of digital art that only a very niche audience have got exposure to at this point. And even when they get, even those people that get exposure to that art, it's not in a concentrated format. People don't get to see it in one particular place. So at the same time, we're finding that TVs are getting larger and thinner, connected to the internet, and cheaper and higher res and that sort of thing. And so with Moore's Law, I think it's quite exciting where these TVs could get you in the next few years. So that gives us an opportunity to try consolidate all this great HD digital art and videos and images and that sort of thing in one place and be able to stream that to these connected devices like smart TVs to provide really like a new entertainment experience. So in the home, what we're planning on we're hoping that this will provide an opportunity for people to be able to stream art to their TVs and be able to change it whenever they want. We're hoping that it'll be a form of backdrop where people can enjoy this in dinner parties and entertaining in general. But essentially, we're trying to turn a TV room back into a living room. And so for businesses, we're also aiming to provide content which is sort of ambient, abstract, engaging to the customers in environments like coffee shops, bars, and other retail spaces and that sort of thing. So there are people and companies that are trying to do this at the moment. Companies like InLink and Cafe Screen and that sort of thing, but they're currently sort of streaming 3-minute loops of, you know, weather and news and Lexus ads, and we think we can do something a bit better than that. So who is our market? Well, we're looking at obviously at consumers and commercial as well, but initially we're probably looking at consumers just because the barrier to entry is just going to be a little bit easier. And in terms of that sort of customer demographic that we're looking at sort of digital art enthusiasts primarily, who are, you know, au fait with the using digital technology like smart TVs. And we're also looking at doing the sort of the inverse, which is sort of technology audience, which are art and design enthusiasts who are familiar with, you know, using TV screens and other screens in innovative ways. So what have we done so far? So we've worked with an agency called Freestyling. I think we might have someone here from them. Over there, we've got David. So we've currently completed wireframes, and we've converted those. I'll say we, I haven't done anything. They have. We've converted wireframes into HTML, and we're hoping that this week we'll start to cut code. So that's quite exciting. I've been working with a curator off and on to engage artists that I feel will work well with this project. And currently we've got about 15 artists who are committed to being part of that, and each of them probably providing about 3 pieces of art each. We've got about 5 or so fence sitters at the moment, so I hope that I can convert them further down the process. So from a marketing sort of campaign point of view, we built a landing page a while back, and we did some ad campaigns on a US-based art network site, which sent off customers to our landing page, and we got some registrations through that. They also had an email, a dedicated email to their customer base, which we used, which was just for StillReel, and we've probably got about 25% of our customer registrations just to that. So that was probably quite an effective use of our money, limited money. So I've also got a sort of Twitter following, I guess, of just under 700, which is quite small, I guess. But and so I probably tweet every so often, probably about 6 or 7 times a week, different digital art items and technology impacts and all that. So those are the kind of things that I'm kind of busy with so far. So what are we planning for the next 3 to 6 months? You can't really see that. So probably the most important thing is in the next 2 months we're hoping to launch, all things going well with the agency. So we're considering doing a soft launch initially to sort of the registered users and also to friends and family, that sort of thing. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, because we'll have a sort of a tame audience to do some bug fixing with and that sort of thing. But also it'll give me a platform that I can take to the sort of fence-sitting artist and try to get them on board. And the other thing is also that it's difficult to get advertising space or advertising campaigns in the actual networks that we want to this sort of close out. So that might give us a bit of time to get on the right networks. So I'm also looking to sign up the artists in the next sort of month or 2, and then start getting the actual art out of their hands and into our site. And then really it's about launching in the next 2 months and surviving for the next 6. Thank you for listening.
My girlfriend had an art gallery.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great space. Absolutely.
Let's start with some questions.
I just wanted to ask you just first up, why are you confident this is a business opportunity?
Well,
that wasn't clear to me from the presentation, that was all.
I think in the way that we can sell it into the living rooms, I think it might be a new way of providing an entertainment space in the living room.
Is there a competitive solution right now that's making money?
There's a competitive solution called seditionart.com, but they sell limited edition digital prints. So they've probably got a repertoire of artists of about, I don't know, 50 or 60 artists, and they've been in the business for probably about 2 years or so. But their model is selling digital edition prints. And I just don't feel like creating a false sense of scarcity around digital prints makes any sense. So that's why I think the subscription model as a competitor to that makes a lot more sense.
And actually, I'll answer this question. One of my, if I may, one of my former girlfriends owned an art gallery. Art is actually a business, and it's a really big business. It's a bit of a discretionary spend, and when the economy goes down. But I think this Jeff actually has something in your lounge room, cheap art. Change your artwork every month. That is cool. That is cool. You got every hour. Every day, every hour. You got a dinner party coming up. Change the artwork. Sounds bloody great. I like it, man. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, just kind of extending on the idea of pricing. For me, have you considered the price of substitutes? Because if I just think about Apple TV, when the TV goes off and it just rolls onto Flickr or my photos or other things that are there, or even just standard imagery from the web. Have you thought about the issue on the price of substitutes, which is ostensibly free, as far as I can tell? And if you have something that's of interest, have you thought about potentially trying to sell it into some of the hardware players so that they've got something a little bit more interesting as to have on their hardware so that it can play in people's lounge rooms? Yeah, I guess you are competing with what their media devices are currently streaming, but I think you're providing art into their home, and this will appeal to people who already collect art. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I've got 2 kids, and essentially, streaming, photos of our 3-year-old endlessly on the screen isn't that entertaining necessarily. So this might provide a little bit of, light relief. But I just think it's an interesting entertainment factor. We've got a whole bunch of these digital art that we put onto our media device and just stream it and all the way through. And it's a very good ambient kind of way to enjoy your living room, I think. And your second question was? This was really just more related to the pricing.
Yeah.
Because the other options are free, and also have you thought about being the software provider to hardware providers so that there's a point of difference?
And I have thought about integrating them with the cafe screens and the end links and that sort of thing. But I think I would rather just see if we can go out alone, see whether it's a product that is sustainable in its own right, that can just exist on its own. And if that doesn't necessarily work, then maybe we might look into integrating it.
Thanks. I really like the idea. I don't know enough about the market, whether it's a viable market, but from my initial kind of thoughts, it might be worth looking into pricing it at like a premium product, because like you're saying, the target is for people interested in art already, and like $12.50 a month for an art collector isn't very much, especially compared to the free options that Steve was talking about. Or it might be worth looking at having like a freemium model, and then if you want to access the exclusive artists, that could be the higher price point. It's just my thoughts. And marketing, I think you probably need to do maybe some more market research before you can kind of decide on where you want to spend your funds.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on that. You mentioned, I think, 3 targets: cafes, so public spaces, corporate spaces, and private homes. Yep, so right. I think you need to pick one of them. Yeah. I think you need to pick a subset of one of them. And then if I was to think, so if I'm going to be critical, which I'll just do for a moment, if I was going to pick a cafe, you're competing with something that's on the wall that matches my space, which I've already bought, which is a sunk cost. So now I've got to go and get your thing, put a TV in there, spend some money, get it hooked up wide, effort for something that may not give the same ambience as a hand-drawn picture by a local artist. So that's tough. And in the corporate space, if there's any form of advertising going on through there, I'm not going to want to touch it. And then in the personal space, I want probably more personalised pictures of my friends and family up unless I'm a very artistic person. But then if you're taking the argument that it's a replacement for high-end artwork that you'd buy in a gallery, it doesn't have the same sort of cachet that you would get out of a piece that you buy, because you can't talk about the artist, you can't brag about how exclusive it is. You lose some of those. Well, as soon as it becomes digital, it's more of a commodity. So I think you need to, I guess this is all coming down to, I think you need to think about the target and validate it against the target before you go and spend more money on the marketing. Even though it looks like it looks beautiful and it'll be awesome, I just don't know whether it's something people will hand money over for. Sorry.
Caroline Springs, they'll put it up. They've got their baby bonus. Anyway, I shouldn't say that. Question?
Have you thought of having like a free model for consumers and then starting like a cult ad?
Free models to consumers.
We have thought about free models, but you know, in all my sort of readings of startups and MVPs and all that sort of thing, everything kind of dictates that you've got to prove that your business model works. And I just think if I start giving free options, it's not going to validate my business model. So I'm keen to see whether I'm going to fail straight up. So I think that from that perspective, I'm not all that keen on doing a free model. And I'm also not that interested in doing a cafe screen sort of thing where it is interspersed with adverts. I want to do something that's a bit more pure. And as soon as I do that, I think I get rid of the cachet, as you say, of fine art, or at least finer art anyway.
When you put anything into the digital space, people can take it. How do you control the rights to the artwork? How do you control people not taking and just using the artwork, you know, showing it to their friend, you know, without actually taking it?
Yeah, so I guess there's a whole bunch of different answers to that. Some of them technical, I guess most of them are technical actually. And so we're working with the agency really to try to control, you know, right-clicking and saving and all that sort of thing, and being able to download all those pieces. And obviously, keeping them on our server is a principal part of our business. So we'll aim to do that as part of our technical solution. It's obviously very important to us that people can't download those pieces and use them in any kind of other form. And they can only use them when they're logged in and paid for the subscription.
Okay. We'll take one more question.
One more.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you paying them a one-stop commission, or are you splitting revenue with them?
Yeah, it's a commission. It was originally like a profit sharing process, and then I found a whole bunch of difficulties with the financial model of just profit sharing, because it just exposed me to the potential that I'd have to open my books to them. So currently we're looking at just doing a percentage share of the sales, and those will all go back to the artists. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing a per view kind of thing, so that the artists that are getting most of the views may get more of the revenue and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a round of applause. Absolutely.
All right, so hi, I'm Morgan. I'm from YourGrocer, and the problem we're trying to solve is that Australia's food and grocery retail market sucks. So Coles and Woolies are growing at a pretty insane rate. They're continuing to eat up local independent butchers, bakers and greengrocers. Meanwhile, consumers want convenience, and even if they really want to shop at local butchers, bakers and greengrocers, they don't do it because taking a trip to Coles is just so much more convenient than stopping 3 or 4 times on the way home to pick up your bread, your meat, your groceries from the specialty retailers. That was me about 6 months ago. My wife and I were shopping on a Monday night, late at night, at Coles. We hated it, but we did it because we didn't have time to go to the places we really wanted to go. It's because of this need for convenience that online grocery shopping is growing at an insane rate. Obviously, Coles and Woolies, we're seeing more vans around, we're seeing it there, but the stats are pretty crazy. Over the last 5 years, the average annual growth for Coles and Woolies, they're each around the same rate. It's about 50% per year in online sales. Last year, the combined sales were $1.4 billion, and that's 13% of all online shopping in Australia, Coles and Woolies. So Why do I say that? Because we believe it's time to empower the local independent butchers, bakers, greengrocers and delis to compete in this new online space. And it's because of that we're building an online community and an online community and marketplace that will connect busy consumers with their local fresh produce retailers. It'll create opportunities for local independent delivery drivers to service local areas, and it'll connect retailers with consumers they wouldn't otherwise be able to access. So that's what we're doing. What market are we focused on? We're focused on busy consumers who want to shop at these local independent places but don't because they don't have time. More specifically, they're your busy families, your young professionals, foodies who want quality. We want them all. Obviously, we know you need to focus on a niche, and so early on we decided to pick young professionals because I would consider myself one, not that I know what a professional really means, but I thought I can find people like me who want this, but the problem is people like me don't know what they're cooking a few days in advance. I don't know what I'm cooking tomorrow night or the night after, even though I run this business. Young professionals, we need to provide them meal planning apps and tools, and we're not ready to do that yet. So we turned our attention to families because they know how to shop in advance. So mums and dads, they're our biggest target market right now, and they're our most frequent customers. What we figured out a good place to find them is a daycare centre, a little hub where they all tend to be twice a day, pretty frequently. So we found a daycare centre and gave them a little bit of an incentive to push us, and we got a whole bunch of customers through that, which was really nice. So that's the market that we're focused on right now. What have we done so far? We have, let me read my little checklist. All right, so we convinced a friend to build an online shopping cart for us, a really basic one, and it cost us nothing. We approached 8 retailers, 6 of which said yes. We found early on we wanted to get the best retailer in every category, the best bakery in Brunswick, the best butcher in Brunswick. The best guys weren't so keen, the second best guys were keen. So what else did we do? We rented a van 2 days a week. We started doing deliveries in Brunswick, and so far we've built up 130 customers in the local area. 40% of which, I shouldn't say customers, 130 users, 40% of which are active, 70% of those are regulars, recurring orders. So that's where we're at in our customer development. What are we planning to do next? Planning to build our delivery run in Brunswick and surrounding suburbs until it's profitable. That obviously involves the customer development, working on our affiliate partnerships, which isn't affiliate in the terms of like online marketing, it's affiliates like daycare centres, gyms and schools who represent hubs of people who might be willing to buy or push our product. And bring on board some new suppliers. So more butchers, bakers and greengrocers means they bring on their customers too. We also plan to seed the supplier side of our platform via building our directory of retailers, so building up the listings, and building a product database which we aim to crowdsource from manufacturers. That's actually a really hard part of what we're doing. Is there's say a deli who wants to come on board. They've got 3,000 products, and they're not the products you'd see in Coles. They're the more boutique products, so they're not available on any online marketplace, any platform. We can't just rip them off Coles websites. So yeah, we need to build that, and that takes time, and so that's part of the plan too. 3 things we could use a hand with, even though you're probably going to ask me way different questions, which is great as well. Number 1, to bootstrap or not to bootstrap. We kind of have that tussle, and we haven't figured out I don't think there is a magic bullet, but if you've got any advice, that'd be awesome. Costing our build. How does a business without a tech co-founder cost up a particular phase of our development? And money. What's the best source of investment for us, or some advice around that? And is a convertible note from friends or family a good idea? Yeah, thanks.
Do you guys want to ask a question, or is any of those interesting to you guys?
Take it wherever you want, though.
Go.
One thing that's interesting just on getting the money that you might not have thought of is that all of the suppliers to Coles and Woolworths, and I've worked at Procter & Gamble and a lot of these FMCG companies, hate Coles and Woolworths. And so a great place to get money is to suppliers. of Coles and Woolworths because they've got a vested interest in disrupting that duopoly. So that might be a good place to think about getting investing. In fact, Coca-Cola have a venture capital fund now that they've started recently where they invest in startups that can break up the system that they're fighting against in Australia, which is interesting. So that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to ask you was, have you thought about branding this on a suburb by suburb basis rather than an aggregated area to get that, you know, the Brunswick or the Richmond or the Yarraville, because that might be an interesting way to remove some of the scaling issues and also sub-brand.
Yeah. Thanks. So the first question, I really love the idea of that. I guess we've been a little, we're in that stage where we want to make it look better before we take it to those big Coca-Colas and Procter & Gamble's and, you know, those big guys. Do you think, I mean, you probably haven't seen our website yet, so can't really know where we're at, but yeah, our hesitation with that is, do we make it better before we show them, or should we just go there now with what we've got? Go now? Cool. All right, that's that done.
What they want when they say no anyway.
Yeah.
Draft towards it.
Cool. Yeah, because right now we're building with the little brands, like they're all keen on it. We've called them all, and well, okay, we've called 20 of them, and they're all keen, but the bigger guys, yeah, I guess we'll just call them. The second question, the local sort of thing, we really aim to make this very, very local. I'm doing the deliveries at the moment, but I don't want to be doing that. We want to have local guys who are able to, we want to build a platform that people would see as an opportunity to buy their own refrigerated van, get accredited and become the local delivery guy, and maybe the greengrocer's son wants to go and do that, serves a local community, and you get something different in Footscray than you do from Caulfield, and it's local for local kind of thing. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Questions. So, so the cost of build, you keep talking about it as a platform, so it sounds like there's a strong technical play in this. Why not get or trying to acquire a technical co-founder? Because it seems like it's core, like it's going to be a core part of your business.
Yeah. That would be awesome, guys. Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I guess I haven't found one. When I say cost to build, I guess right now we're using a really basic shopping cart. If anyone knows a service called OpenCart, it's an open source shopping cart. There we go. I just told you how to hack our shopping cart, damn it. So it's a really basic thing, and when I say cost to build right now, for us it's about getting it from the really basic thing to something that's at least a little bit better. The platform is kind of what we're aiming to do at the same time, but I'm trying to figure out this early stage and the later stage. I need a co-founder. Anyone come talk to me. But yeah, any other advice?
And some massively generic advice around bootstrapping, and you know, I'm not a financial advisor, but I've got to figure that if you can grow this business organically quickly enough, you know, don't go for money. And if you can actually see a place where, if you get a bunch of money and maybe invest it in the tech, or maybe you could subsidise the delivery portion temporarily while you build up the rest of it, then it's a worthwhile investment. Otherwise, why dilute your investment, your hard work?
Yeah, I guess my only concern is with such a fast-growing industry, are we going to get left behind if we do try and go down the line of
competitors?
No, well, yes, yeah, we do, but no marketplace style competitors other than Farmhouse Direct, which is Aussie Post's model, and they're just going to try and make as much money as they can on shipping. So we've got a different advantage to them. So yeah, Aussie Farmers Direct are one, but they're very much centralised, compared to what we're aiming to do. But yeah, they are a real competitor.
I think there's a lot to like about this.
Cool.
A lot.
Thank you. Have you thought about collaborating with Aussie farmers in some way because they've got the footprint?
We have. Sorry, if anyone didn't hear, you asked, have we heard about collaborating with Aussie Farmers Direct? We thought about it. They're very much about farmer first and then consumer, and I think what they're doing is great, and we're not anti them, and they're not really a competitor. Our competitor is Coles and Woolies because they have 80% of the market, right? So, but we don't want to create a platform where we become the one who cuts out the retailer, which is what Aussie Farmers Direct do, which is what Coles and Woolies are doing to their own manufacturers who have sort of built them up. They're cutting out those those manufacturers and bringing in their own brand labels. Aussie Farmers Direct, they source everything themselves, they sell everything themselves, there's no room, they're not a very collaborative sort of, yeah, they're not supporting local retailers, we're all about the local independent retailers. We've had brands, manufacturers approach us and say, do you want to stock our product? And we say, yes, we do, but go talk to the retailer. Once they do, then we'll sell it. So, and we've made a commitment to do that forever, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really great business, and that's like such a good culture to begin with. Yeah, I think maybe it kind of looks like you might need a bit of money for technical development or for expansion of the deliveries and bringing on more suburbs before you probably could approach a Coke or those kind of things. I was going to say something. Oh, I can't remember at the moment. No, I've forgotten.
Morgan, have you done your numbers and know exactly how many customers you need in Brunswick to be profitable? And what your shortfall is and what's going to cost you to get there? Because the easiest way to get money is have the businesses making money hand over fist and people will track you down. And when you get there, it becomes easy. So can you validate that you actually can run a profitable business in Brunswick, I suppose, and have you figured out what that exactly looks like?
Yeah, cool. Awesome question. We have spent the last 6 months keeping it very, knowing that we're still figuring out our financial model. We've actually just this week are really bedding down a change in that. We originally thought that because of the fact that these retailers know that they really need to get these customers or else they're in trouble, we started off with the assumption that they would basically be the ones paying us instead of the customer. So what I mean by that is the consumer would pay for the goods without paying a delivery fee, and the retailers would be happy to pay enough of a fee to us because they're not needing to pay any marketing, they're not adding on extra stores, they're just getting more customers that we're bringing in. Now, they're happy to do that, and they're paying us a pretty good portion of their margin right now. Wow. But what we've realised, though, is that in doing that, they don't see each customer as their own customer, they see us as just another corporate account. And so we want to actually give them back more of that. And then we've figured out that our customers are willing to pay a little bit for delivery. So that doesn't actually really answer your question. But I guess what I'm saying is we're in the middle of, we've learned a heck of a lot about our financial model and changed it quite recently, but we do know that under both models, we don't actually need that many deliveries to sustain it because of the obvious advantages of the fact that we don't have any stock, we don't have any wastage, we're getting an order and a sale before we're getting a payment on a Monday, we send the order off on a Monday afternoon, we're picking up the stock on a Tuesday and delivering it Tuesday afternoon. So we just have a van and a delivery guy, and then we are actually having to pass on the whole responsibility of building up the customer route and user base, I guess, to that local delivery guy who, will sort of put his own back into it to build that up. So, yeah, we've got kind of two financial models. One is the model of building up the delivery run and making money on the deliveries, but we don't actually, that's not us in the long term. Us in the long term is a marketplace model where we take a little bit from the retailer and a little bit from the delivery guy to make it all work and make a little bit of profit. And both the retailers and the delivery guys make a good amount of profit, therefore they grow and Coles and Woolies can die. We do know the numbers though. We do know the numbers. Our finance guys there.
I remembered what I was going to say. I was just going to say that just in terms of sales and marketing, you could probably get some really good PR with your business as well to help drive kind of awareness of it because it's such a topical issue, the big retailers.
Thanks. Yeah, we're pretty well aware that we can get some good PR. My background is with a company called Thank You Water, and they got crap loads of awesome PR. But for us, because we're only delivering in Brunswick right now, PR would kind of suck unless it's like the Brunswick newsletter. Because at the moment, 90% of the room here, unless you're all from Brunswick, you can't actually use us just yet. So we're trying to keep it local as much as we can and get our retailers to promote it and go to the hubs right now. But yeah, as soon as we can, we don't know the right moment, but yeah, when it's right, we want to go crazy on PR.
Okay,
great.
Great. Question from the crowd. Yeah, go for it, man.
One was around maintenance of the shopping carts. You mentioned 3,000 on products. Do you think, as you scale up, how are you going to maintain the shopping carts driving the products?
Yep.
And second question was it proving cost effective with the cost of delivery? Was small amounts of product delivery cost effective compared to
Yeah, cool. All right, so the first question. What was the first question again? Sorry. Shopping cart, yes. Okay, so we're building a platform that allows, and this is our aim, and you might be able to tell me from Procter & Gamble's point of view, we're aiming that the product itself, if it's a packaged product, say, Coca-Cola, 2-litre bottle of Coke, we want Coca-Cola to actually manage that listing. And our pitch to them is, you're going to control the brand experience. You're not going to have 500 different shop owners putting up 500 different products. So you manage the image, the product, we link it to the barcode, you give us a description, here's your login, and here's some cool analytics that you can pay for, or you get it for free if you put our widget on your site. So the brands actually, we want them to take control of the experience of the product. The price, obviously, they can't do. So that then is what the retailer looks at. So basically, we are building this platform where the retailer will set the price of the product. He'll say, I stock these products. The brands will say, yep, that's my product, and here's what it looks like and feels like. And the consumer will say, I'm going to buy that from this guy. And that's kind of the maintenance of the shopping cart, I guess. Marketplace style, where everyone has their login and integrates it with their point of sale system and integrates it with Xero, and it's all cool. Number 2 question was, is it proving cost effective? Yeah, we just need to get more customers. Oh yeah. So yes, the reason it's cost effective at the moment, and what I think is cool about our model, is that you say you've got one consumer, he's buying from a butcher, a baker, and a greengrocer, and he might be getting a couple of loaves of bread, which wouldn't be profitable just to deliver on their own, but then he's getting some bananas and apples and oranges, and then he's also getting a few steaks, and then some milk and other groceries. And then our van will go and pick up from the bakery, not just his order, but 100 other people's order, and then 100 other people's order from the butcher, from the greengrocer, and the deli. So it's aggregate pickups on the supply side and aggregate drop-offs, because one box might contain a few items from each of these guys. So if we keep it local and we don't need to send it to a warehouse in the middle of the city and then send it all back, then it's just a local pick and pack sort of warehouse on wheels that's refrigerated that goes and picks up from 5 shops and drops off to 100 customers and earns a little fee from each one. So yeah, it works in that regard.
Okay. One more question. Yeah, Mr. Zero.
I just have a question. So when you're dealing with multiple retailers, how are you going to manage the inventory side of things? So are you going to rely on each retailer to provide your shopping cart with what they have in their inventory? And if so, what control are you going to have to make sure that those retailers are actually keeping those inventory lists up to date? Because if someone orders something and then they're like, well, I only have half of what you ordered, what kind of experience is that going to be for the customer?
Yeah, absolutely. So from our experience, half of the retailers have, well, most of the retailers, like a bakery, if they get an order, they can then bake it overnight. So for bakeries, it's awesome. For greengrocers, it's the same deal. They go to the markets at sort of 4 a.m. in the morning whilst we're all asleep, and they buy what they need. So if I order 1 million apples from my greengrocer, he'll actually have it tomorrow because he'll go and get it. So greengrocers are cool. Bakers are cool. Butchers are somewhat cool because they order carcasses in and they can get them in overnight and chop them up, and then they're ready in the morning. Sorry for all the vegetarians. That's how it works. Delis are a little different, and IGAs and people who are stocking stuff on shelves, they're the big sort of question mark ones really that have that issue. A lot of them have sort of point of sale systems and inventory management, and if they're using Metcash and C-stores things, if IGAs basically have the same kind of technology Coles has, which keeps track of their inventory, and we want to integrate API feeds and all that so we can keep a stock, keep track of their inventory and not let them sell what they don't have. But then at the same time, they will sell out sometimes, and if we've got a deli actually, who we're trying to get on board, who has 3,500 products, and they put a price sticker on every single product, a red one for something that has GST and a yellow one for something without GST, and they calculate it all with the calculator at the front. And so I don't know how we're going to get them on board. We don't have a solution for that yet, but they're going to be an issue. And a solution to that is customers get to rate them, and if they never, if they have unfulfilled orders all the time, then they'll end up getting bad ratings. But obviously, we don't want that to happen. We want to go, hey guys, have you thought about Vend HQ, and have you thought about Xero, and have you thought about all the cool cloud-based technologies? You don't have to spend 15 grand to get a point of sale system. We can help you do this, and we can help you get online, and we want to help them, so we don't want them to suffer with the technology. So, yeah.
Cool, well done. Well done, give them a round of applause, come on. Okay. Our last speaker is Rajiv Menon from Menon.
People were still asking for some of the basic things, like we want to share files, we want to do team-based file sharing, we need task management, light workflow, we want to annotate on documents, we want some basic reporting. So we took a lot of this feedback on board, and we went back to the drawing board. Unfortunately, it was a bit heartbreaking. We had to throw out 9 months of work. Went back to the drawing board and built a new product. Took us about 3 months, new developers, and we pushed that back out at the market, started talking to more customers. This time we're a little bit better. We started to get some traction. We got a couple of customers to take it on board and start using it. Got a bit more feedback, a couple of more key features came in around annotations and some improvements around tagging and searching, which we took another few months to kind of develop, and we were able to land our first deal. So that was a big plus for us, and at that time the Swiss Army knife was born. Here we go. Next slide. So what are the actual problems? I touched on it a bit in the last slide. So out of all the customers that we were talking to in the small to mid-market space, most of the ones that we ended up getting connected to were in the M&A or due diligence space. So they were looking for a virtual data room. I need to share documents with people from multiple companies. I need to do this quickly. I have no IT support. We're a small organization with 15 to 20 people. Obviously, one of the big problems, I can't easily share documents with people from multiple companies. Sharing large documents over email is causing a lot of problems. I need to use something now. I cannot, afford to have an IT guy have to set this up for me. The other play that we found has started to get some traction for us, which is a bit surprising, it's a bit unexpected, is the private tutoring. The private tutoring space. So by private tutoring, I'm not talking about online learning. This is the one-to-one interaction where parents hire a tutor to focus on their student. And if you've grown up in India, China, or any of the other Asian countries, you know what a private tutor is, much like I do. So with the private tutoring, we've signed up a couple of these guys now, and they have 60 to 70 students each. They want a way to obviously connect with the students and help them with assignments, connect with them over video. They want to be able to show parents how the results of the work are going, so that they can effectively charge them. From what we're seeing, some of these parents are paying up to $500 an hour for a tutor. Exam time makes it tough to connect with 60 students at the same time. So I potentially want to solve a problem once, share it with all the kids at the same time. So that's another problem we've been able to solve for these guys. On to the next slide. So the markets. As I said, I guess we started with a bit of a broad white cloth, and we've ended up with two distinct markets where we seem to be getting a bit of traction. We re-released with all the new features that we have now in May, and really over the last 4 months, we've started to get a bit of traction in each of these spaces. Now, we've done some calculations around an addressable market size for the virtual data room market. Now, currently, it's not a massive market. It's about 628 million this year. It's dominated by some of the larger players like R.R. Donnelley and Merrill and a company called Intralinks. They focus typically on the top end of town. Now, you're also starting to see a bit of a mid-tier coming in that space with a lot of the newer boutique M&A players and investment banks, and you're starting to see some of the other products like boxes introduced. deal room offering in the last 12 months. Citrix has introduced one, I think 3 to 6 months ago, and there are a few other players that strictly target the mid-tier space, and that's the space we hope to play in, focusing in Asia Pacific. It's set to grow to 1.5 billion by 2018, so we're hoping to capitalize on a bit of that growth. We do expect there's going to be some competition though. The private tutoring, maybe a bit more of an untapped space. It's obviously, we're a very small portion of the overall tutoring spend. Now it's set to grow to 102 billion by 2018. Majority of that number is in Asia Pacific, which I assume is where the majority of our activity will be. And about 2.5% of that is what we expect, what we hope anyway, is going to be carved out towards an IT spend, which gives us a nice $2.5 billion number. So, what's our progress to date? We've been around for about 2.5 years, so out of that, not all of it's been spent building product. We've spent about 15 months building product, of which, there was about 8 to 9 months, which was the first version, which was a period of time I thought would never end. Aside from that, there was a lot of time getting out, talking to customers, figuring out what we really needed to do in the product. There's been one significant kind of pivot where we threw out kind of some of the native mobile stuff because it was, quite simply, it was just too high risk and too expensive, and we decided to get some customers, get some money, and get a little bit more cash flow in before we started to tinker with some of that stuff. We've raised $275,000 along the way. Over the last 4 months, we've picked up 11 customers across 4 different countries. A couple of interesting use cases we have here. One is a local one with the tutoring customer who's connecting with 60 of his students, all kinds of different content effectively. And the other one, which is a really interesting one, which is one of the due diligence cases we've had over the last few months, where there was a seller of a business that was in Queensland working with a business broker also based in Queensland, and the potential acquiring company, because the deal's not closed yet, is based in Vancouver, British Columbia, and they've, over a period of 4 weeks, which is the due diligence process, they shared 210 documents. There were 47 tasks assigned, and there were another 15 notes that they created as part of that activity. All of these users were very non-technical. They were all CEO, CFO types, and they were able to get up and running with effectively no training. And we did invest a bit of money in UX the second time around, and we thought, okay, so maybe that was money well spent. Move on to the next slide. So what are our priorities over the next 6 months? Well, really, since we've now kind of stabilized over the last 4 months, kind of those initial growing pains from bringing on that influx of customers. We did have quite a few problems, but all those have been solved. Over the next six months, I think the biggest priorities are customers, and hopefully trailered by some additional funding to support some of that growth. So we're hoping to double the number of VDR customers that we have, double the countries as well, and obviously the revenue, and hopefully triple the number of tutoring students we have on board, along with getting across some more of the states and increasing the revenue over there as well. And towards the end of that 6-month cycle, we do have a long laundry list of stuff that we've gotten from customers, and we're hoping to secure some funding, and we're actively in a couple of cycles there as well. So what would be great if, I guess you guys could help us out with, along the way, would be any potential introductions to, future clients in any of these spaces. So, any boutique M&A shops, or investment banks, any contacts within those companies, anybody that is in the tutoring game, any opportunities to speak at events where, in any of these markets, and, anybody that's potentially interested in investing in any of these spaces along the way. Contact information, John, our CEO and co-founder, is unfortunately not available tonight because he is on a call with some potential investors, and I'm obviously here, and Ken Brandt, our director and board member, is also in the crowd. And I think that's it.
Very confident, very confident. Come on.
Okay, so with one of the things I find it interesting that you have international clients, and one of the things that I do is I'm the representative of the City of London in Australia, And so I do a fair bit of work in the trade and investment space. And what I can tell you is that in every place in the world, there is someone who has the title Economic Development Manager or Investment Attraction Manager, and his job is to try to get you to invest in his country. What this means to you is you have to say, we think about setting up shop here. How can you help us develop customers here? And they will throw free stuff at you. And the free stuff can be introduction to potential clients. So you go to Kuala Lumpur and you say, we want to be able to, we're looking at investing here, we want to access the private tutor market, and they will throw stuff at you. That's fantastic, because everyone in the entire world likes clever businesses, and everyone wants you to invest in their country. You don't have to invest in their country, you have to say, we're thinking about investing here, how can you support us?
Questions? Excellent.
Right.
So that's
tutoring market. I've got an Asian wife, so they're really into, as you've mentioned, getting into private schools. I wonder if you thought about chasing the scholarship kids who are on that whole tutoring, trying to get the scholarships to the good schools, and that's a really lucrative area in terms of tutoring. So there's a whole kind of, if you just Google the whole training for scholarships for young kids, then that's an interesting area to find tutors.
I suspect that'd be the high end of town as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Just adding to that, probably maybe international students as well, training to come over to Australia.
Okay, sure. How much does your product sell for?
At the moment, we've got a couple of different offerings. The one that we offer to pretty much the general users are $10 per user per month.
Oh, sorry, dude. Here you go.
The general offering that the majority of the customers are on is $10 per user per month. We do have one customer that's said, we have a heightened requirement for security, so we actually want our own separated instance. So we've done that for them as well. So there was a little bit of extra on that, but it was fine. It wasn't much more.
Okay. All right. So my thoughts, so we've been asked to give feedback, so I'll give you my feedback. So I'm concerned that you're not focused enough. So it always worries me when I see generalised products, the Swiss Army knife of. It's not that I don't believe your product can't do those things. That's not the issue at all. I think the problem is unless you're talking to a specific group of people, you can't message to them effectively. And while you may be able to go after these two spaces, your branding doesn't talk to that space. I can't Google for you easily. You're not findable. You're not talking to me directly. So I think my opinion is that you really need to rebrand and focus on one of those two marketplaces and just go hard. I mean, you've got 11 customers earning $10 a month, so it's certainly not
per person.
Per person. So let's say it's in the order of $1,000 or $2,000 a month. I don't know what it is. But if you're talking in that sort of range, then you're still early enough to make changes pretty easily. I think you could do. I think the other thing about focusing on a market is you get to start writing content, you get to talk to your customers directly, you get to build some brand around it. And I think you're missing out on all these opportunities because you're trying to be everything to everybody at the moment. I wouldn't pick. I'd let you pick because you know the space better. But I don't look. They're both big markets, right? Does it matter?
You can. I was just going to say, did you say you got the 11 customers in the last 4 months?
In the last 4 months.
Yeah. So you've obviously spent a lot of time working on your product, and now you probably know your core offering pretty well. And of those, I think you might have covered this, but of those 11, what percentage were in each
Probably
two market?
80-20 split between dealer and tutor.
Which one was the 80?
80 is the dealer.
Oh, okay. I was going to go tutoring, but...
VDR. Oh, sorry. It's an 80-20 split, so at the moment it's 80% dealer and 20% tutoring.
So I've got more thoughts. So as a generalized collaboration platform, that's it's a pretty broad market. So the obvious player in that space would be Google with their Google Docs offering. and they've got great brand awareness, great distribution. They're everywhere. So, and they're cheap, or they're free until you get to 25 people, whatever that is. So, where was I going with this? So I think if you're talking about both of those markets, $10 per user is cheap. It's cheap. I think your pricing's too cheap.
For either of those.
Yeah. So I'd look at different models. You've got a per seat model. Maybe you can find different ways of batching it up. So I'd do some exploring around pricing. I mean, if you just take the project management space, which is collaboration for workplaces, you know, that price ranges from, if you go down the shitty low end, it's at $3 a head, all the way up to 50. And I've seen it, you know, if you go to Salesforce, which is collaboration for salespeople, they're 70, 80, 90 bucks a head per month. Yeah. So there's a lot of, I think you've got a lot of room to move as far as pricing goes as well.
Yeah, I do think we have a lot of room to move on the pricing. I think we started at 10 because we looked at kind of we looked at Box specifically, and they were like, okay, they were at 10, so we just kind of went, let's start with that and see what happens. But yeah, I think you're right.
Just pricing too low hurts you. Yeah. It prices you, it makes you not look legitimate.
Yeah, agree. That's a question.
Have you got a free trial, and have you thought of like doing a one-to-many strategy where, say, if you give it to the tutors?
It is in the works. Like it's a bit like a reseller program, so it's definitely in the works. And I think as we get across more of this network of tutors, we want them to actually be the ones that are reselling the product instead of us. So yeah, that's definitely something we're considering.
One financial advisor would have 3,000 clients.
Yeah.
You know, they all collaborate with each other, so that could be
good. And that's the word of mouth and the viral growth, and even between the students themselves is something we want to play up. I agree. That's a good point.
Well done, man. Well done. Well done. Well done. Lindsay, the ESL, English as a second language, online, digital. Round of applause. Megan Woods from Ourflow, all the data systemization and tagging and all that sort of stuff. Nick Darcy-Fox from StillReel, art on your mobile phone, all that sort of stuff. Morgan, YourGrocer, shop at your local grocer. Rajiv, electronic data rooms, the last presentation. I think we've got a winner. Morgan, you get the video package wherever you are. Morgan, do you want to put up your hand?
He's doing delivery now.
He's doing his delivery. Fantastic. Well, he gets the prize. We'll hook it up. No worries.